Well, thanks very much. The guy that's been introduced to you couldn't come, so I'm here instead. So I didn't quite recognise him. Okay, so just to start with a bit of a greeting from Leeds. It really is a privilege to be here. I'm really honoured to be here. It's great to be back. I came 2 years ago and I was really thrilled to be invited back. It's always nice when you're invited back because you didn't do so bad the first time. So just a little bit of a geography. You had a bit of geography this morning, but from me, this is so there's Edinburgh up in the north, and Belfast and Cardiff, where I was born in Wales. And there's a place there, I forget this name, but it's we've seen it. And there's Leeds in the God's own county. And if you ever want to come to Leeds, the kettle's always on. So you'd be very welcome. Also want to point out our orange thumb, and you'll see it on my lapel. You'll see a lot about that today. It's just our branding for child-friendly Leeds. And the orange thumb was developed by children. There was a great time spent talking with young people and children. What should we have as our child-friendly Leeds, and then what colour it should have, and then that's been our badge, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We have 187,000 children and young people in Leeds under the age of 18, but we have one plan. And I think one of the things that's so important about the video that you saw was that there were some very senior people all saying the same thing. We had the leader of our council, the elected leader of our council, Councillor Judith Blake. We had the portfolio member for children, so the elected councillor responsible for children's services in Leeds, Councillor Lisa Mulhern. You had the most senior officer, the chief executive of the council, the senior paid officer in the council, and you had Tom Reardon, and you had Steve Walker, the director of children's services, all saying the same thing. All saying that to get it right for Leeds, to get Leeds as a city to work well, to get Leeds to be the place where our ambition is to be the best city, I'm risking my career today by taking on not one but two mayors in saying that Leeds actually is the best city. But, it's career limiting, and but maybe that's where we're at. But if we're going to do that, we have to have a single plan, and it has to be a plan which is incorporating and embracing children through our ambition to be child-friendly. I'll talk about the outcomes and the obsessions in a minute, but schools at the heart of the community. How do we make sure that our schools are functioning as really important community resources? They're not just there as education factories. They're there to be part of that community. What happens before and after the school day is so important. And there are approximately 750,000 people working with children and families in Leeds each week. Doctors, social workers, teachers, nurses, etc. And we ask ourselves one important question. What's it like to be a child growing up in Leeds? Now, I have 3 children. They've all grown up and left home, and I won't look quite so smug. And if you asked me when they were living at home, what's their favourite toy? Who are their friends? What's their favourite television programme? When do they go to bed? When do they wake up? Do they take a toy to bed with them? All those questions I could have told you the answer. But we need to be clear that until we know that there is an adult who can answer those questions for every one of the 187,000 children that live in Leeds, we haven't done our job. And like most cities, Leeds is a city where there is great wealth and great poverty. And so we have this question, what's it like? Do we know what it's like to be growing up in Leeds? And earlier we heard about the initiative in Bristol around period poverty, and I want to endorse that message and just say it's really, really important. We're doing some very similar work in Leeds. And I want to say as a man, this is not a women's issue only. It's a men's issue. I'm a father and I have 2 daughters. Periods are not a shock to me. And they don't embarrass me particularly. I've been to the supermarket to buy sanitary products, it doesn't make me blush. But until we say that this is a matter that whoever you are, we should not be having girls missing school because they can't afford sanitary products. We can't have that, and we need as a community and as a series of communities to do something about that. It's a men's issue, it's a women's issue, it's a boys' issue. Boys need to know about periods. Could you just see a small soapbox there that I was clambering onto? I'll step back. What's it like to be a child growing up in Leeds, and then how do we make it better? How do we make it better for the next generation of children, growing into young adults, growing into the people who will look after me? How do we make it better for them than it was for us? Because that needs to be our ambition. Values are everything. Values matter. Somebody said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I tried to explain that last week to a group in the Netherlands. It took me a while. But I don't know who said it first. There's a big argument on the internet who said it first. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's so important that we get our culture right. It's all about relationships. It's all about conversations. It's all about, are we talking to each other and with each other in the right way? Are we taking each other seriously, or are we trying to score some sort of point that doesn't really exist? Strategy and process matters very much. And please hear this for those of you who spend your lives writing strategy. But strategy documents, processes, don't change the lives of children and young people in Leeds or anywhere else. It's people. It's you in this room will change the lives of the children in your communities. Your strategy documents will help you think through how to do that, but it's the people who go out and knock on front doors, who go into community centres, who talk to children and young people and their families, who do that work with, not to, who make the difference, and who will address the issues which are facing our children. Because we need to be clear that there are children who are growing up in our cities and their lives are not great. Their lives are not happy. And it's our job. We're the grown-ups. We're the ones who need to work with our children and young people to bring around change. 2 quotes. And I love these quotes, and I have them above a desk at home and have done for many years. The first one by Nelson Mandela and Gracia Michel. We've lost Gracia Michel off the bottom. I'm sorry about that. We cannot waste our precious children. Not another one. Not another day. It's long past time for us to act on their behalf. I love that quote because they talk about precious children. They talk about our children being precious. Now, if I say to you, my 3 children are precious to me, you might feel slightly more inclined to think I'm a good bloke. Nice dad. He likes his kids. But there are 187,000 children in Leeds, and all of them are precious. And we need to understand that it's okay to talk in those terms. Not in soft, fluffy terms, but in terms of saying each one of those are precious. Precious to the city. Precious to our development as a city. And the problem is that we sometimes fall into the trap with our teenagers of thinking that being a teenager is a little bit like going to the dentist. It's necessary to do, but it's best got over with quickly. But our teenagers are the most optimistic, are the most vibrant, are the most energetic, are the most willing to see good. And we need to start working with our teenagers and need to take our teenagers seriously and afford them the privilege and the opportunity of having a voice in the development of a city. Secondly, Madge Bray wrote a book called Poppies on the Rubbish Heap. It's a book, it's not an easy book to read, it's a book about children who have been seriously abused. But she wrote this: a child's current behaviour is often an essentially sane response to an untenable set of life circumstances. If we don't understand the life circumstances of our children, we will never understand their behaviour. So in Leeds we have 5 outcomes. These are hardly revolutionary. We want our children to be safe from harm, to do well at school, to enjoy healthy lifestyles, to have fun growing up. Remember fun? It was good, wasn't it? And to be active citizens who have voice and influence. They're 5 outcomes that we want, conditions of well-being that we want for our children. And we have 3 obsessions, and we unapologetically talk about obsessions. And we heard again from Bristol this morning that they have three things that they've focused on. That doesn't mean that everything else isn't important, but these 3 things are important for us. And these 3 things we have obsessed on for 7 years. We want to reduce the number of children who are in state care. Looked after is the phrase that we use in the UK, but in state care, because we had too many of them. We want to reduce the number of children leaving school, not going to further education, into employment or into training. Some of our young people were leaving and going nowhere, often in communities where worklessness was already a problem. And we wanted to increase achievement, attainment, and attendance at school. Very briefly, attendance is very easy. Are they going to school? Attainment is, did they do well in their exams? But the truth of the matter is that some young people will not do well in their exams in terms of getting lots of A's. But they will achieve things. They will achieve things in their schooling. They will achieve things during their school life. And we need to make sure that we recognise that too. So 3 obsessions. And a bold ambition to be the best city for children and young people to grow up in. We want to be a child-friendly city. And this is importantly supported by all party in Leeds. So all political parties in Leeds are supportive of our child-friendly initiative. Something's gone wrong with the formatting of the slides. I apologise that I've cut the Queen off. So I've insulted 2 mayors and insulted the Queen all in one talk. It's going to be a bad day, isn't it? It was officially launched by the Queen in 2010, and every school in Leeds was represented in the crowds that you see there, waving flags and waving orange thumbs. We really wanted Her Majesty to put the thumbs up, but we didn't quite get there. And so a child-friendly city is where we put the child at the centre of all that we do. We place the child at the centre of all of our conversations. And sometimes we have to remind each other that that's why we're here. We put the child at the centre of the growth strategy. If children don't feel welcome in your city, growing up in your city, if they don't feel welcome and part of that city, as soon as they can, they will leave. They will leave to go somewhere where they feel welcomed and included. And if they leave, they won't come back. And then the community runs out of young people. And it becomes an ageing community. A community where there's no young people to take the jobs, so the jobs go. No young people to look after others in the community. And slowly the community dies. So there is a very hard-nosed, straightforward economic reason why we should be child-friendly as cities, as communities. We want our children to stay, to grow up and think, this is a great place to be. I'm going to stay. Children live in families. Families create communities. Communities make cities. Children are not separate from or different from our city. They are part of our city, and we need them to be part of our city. It's a whole city approach. I want to show you a number of pictures. I haven't got time to go into all of these, but these are wheelie bins. Do people know wheelie bins? Are they? Yeah, okay. They're bins, and they've got wheels on. We thought of that name ourselves. But you don't put rubbish in these. These are our child-friendly Leeds bins. They're full of toys. Skipping ropes, footballs, hoops, tennis rackets, tennis balls, frisbees. And a community can have one of these delivered to them in the summer. And the community will put them on a street. Sometimes they'll put them across the street so cars can't come down. With permission of the authorities, of course. And then children can dip into the bins, take out a bit of play equipment and play. In our city. Child-friendly bins. And these we've got a number of them, and they go out each summer, and then they come back, and sometimes not all the equipment is returned. Who cares? Oh no, somebody's stolen a football or a tennis racket. They're not going to sell it, they're going to play with it. And if it's got broken, it's fine. School engagement. I want to tell you a very brief story about this bottom left picture with the 3 young women and the chef. We ran an international conference 2 years ago in Leeds, 3 years ago in Leeds. And I was involved in organising it. And I went to see the manager of the hotel that we were holding the conference in. And I said, I want to include children and young people in this conference. And he said, yes, no problem at all. And I said, what I'd like to do is have a competition for all our schools. And I'd like young people to design and plan the starter for the conference dinner. He went a bit pale. He said, I better go and call Chef. I said, yes, you better have to. So Chef came out, and I told him, and he said, what a great idea. And the general manager still looked a bit pale, but it was okay. And the chef and I talked, and I said, well, what do we do? Help me, I've never designed a starter. He said, okay, here's the 2 rules. It can't cost more than £1 per head, and it has to be local products. Great stuff. So we put this out as a competition to schools. We got loads of entries in, and Chef helped us judge those entries, and these 3 young women won. And on the day of the conference, they came in their school uniform, not necessarily kitchenware, but that was okay. And Chef showed them what they were going to do, what he was going to do. And then he said, right, you best get started. And they helped cook the starter for the gala dinner. They were in the Hilton Hotel kitchens for the afternoon and early evening. They came out and served the starter, and then got a round of applause and a few goodie bags. One of them went on to catering college. And part of that, getting the place at catering college, was because she won this competition. That's changing the lives of children one at a time. That's taking seriously the well-being and the wishes of our children. I could tell you lots more, but I haven't got time. We have in Leeds 850 child-friendly ambassadors from businesses, from the community. The rhinoceros there is Ronnie the Rhino, the mascot of Leeds Rugby League Club, the Leeds Rhinos. They're great fans and ambassadors of ours, and they all help raise the profile of child-friendly Leeds and share what it's about. And there's just some of them, and it doesn't matter that you can't see all the names. But what you've got up there are solicitors' firms. You've got energy companies like British Gas. You've got our sports teams, the Rhinos and Leeds United. You've got Northern Ballet School of Ballet. You've got the Playhouse and the Grand, 2 of our theatres. All over the city, we have ambassadors who support our aim and our ambition to be a child-friendly city. We have an arena in Leeds. You have a dome in Tacoma. Every time somebody comes to the arena, we ask them to support our young people by allowing them to have a picture with a flag and a thumb. Okay? You can't walk around Leeds without having to do that. You've got to do that if you come to Leeds, all the time. And then many of them will do a little video message about young people's exams. Good luck in your exams. So here we've got lots of pop stars that I can't identify because I'm too old. But apparently they're all jolly good, and they're all young people like to see. If you look on the top row, there's Nicola Adams. She's where are we? On the top row, she's 2 times Olympic gold medal boxer. Okay, how cool is that? She's from Leeds, and she's one of our child-friendly ambassadors. I won't go through them all. Nadia, who won Bake Off. I don't know, do you have Bake Off here? Great British Bake? No, it doesn't matter. You need to have it, it's great. It's a competition about cooking cakes. It completely absorbs the whole of the UK, and it's about cooking cakes. It's great. Isn't it? It's on Netflix. Hey, pick it up. Ah. What we want to do is include everybody who comes to Leeds in our ambition to be a child-friendly city. Just below this, across the road here, there's a playground. One year, about 4 years ago, our parks department planted this. No one asked them to. No one said, will you put a thumb outside the playground? They just did it. They just did it. I used to go drive past that because it made me smile. Because all of a sudden you see our city embracing our ambition to be child-friendly. Each year we dress the city. Good luck in your exams and well done in your exams. And the stars that come to the Leeds Arena will do a little 10-second video. Hi, I'm whoever I am. Good luck in your exams. We want our young people to know that we recognise it's stressful for them. We want them to know that we're with them. We want them to know that we're standing absolutely with them. We can't take the stress of public examinations away, but we can say we're on your side. And we can say as a city, we're rooting for you. And we can say as a city, well done. And if you didn't do quite as well, here's some ideas as to what you can do next. We're with you. You're part of who we are. And that's a really important message to put across if we want to be child-friendly. It's really important to hear the voice of children and young people in all that we do in our consultations, in our appointments. I was interviewed by a number of people to get this job, a number of grown-ups to get this job, and politicians and the like. And then I was interviewed by a group of young people. A group of young people who had asked me questions. And I had to take it seriously because their marking was 30% of the overall appointment score. And it was a great time. It was really good fun because they asked some really good questions. And they said some nice things about me. The nicest was that they thought I'd make a good Father Christmas. I still got the job, but even if I hadn't have done, that would have done for me. That would have done for me. And we have a children's mayor. This is Rio. Rio is 10. He was elected last November to be our children's mayor for a year. Every year we ask children, 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds to write a manifesto. Not very long, it's normally A4. And then the best 10, the best 12, are selected by a group of children and adults. And then those 12 are sent out and young people vote. And our children's mayor candidates campaign. And they go and see people and talk about it. And on a wonderful night in November, we have a meeting in our civic hall, in the council chamber, and the announcement is made as to who will win. And this year, Rio won. He wasn't expecting to win, as you can see from his footwear. And Rio's campaign manifesto was about racism, and his slogan was, "Stop, think, racism stinks." Which is great. Rio addressed the full council of Leeds City Council, 99 elected members in the council chamber. He read his manifesto to them. And then that was adopted as official council policy, and then officers are working with Rio to develop his campaign, including we're having a load of wristbands made, those little plastic wristbands with his slogan on, to give out to his peers at school. And each year we have a new children's mayor. I want to show you this because this will just give you a flavour of this. Of last summer, we asked our young people what they'd like to happen in the city centre, and this just describes a little bit of what they wanted to do. Very briefly, because we've only got a few minutes left, haven't I? Am I doing all right? Oh, great. One of the important tools that we use as we're doing this work is around restorative or relational practice. And restorative practice is, I'll show you a grid in a few moments, but it's not a model or a tool, it's just a way of being. It's a way of recognizing that the most important thing is that we need to be able to develop relationships, professional relationships and relationships with the families and children that we're working with. It's around high support and a high challenge. It uses this grid. So up and down you have challenge and across you have support. Let me give you 1 minute rather than 2.5 hours, which I normally take for this. If you live in a world which is very high challenge and very low support, things get done. But things get done because you're scared, you're being shouted at, you're being instructed to, and young people don't like it, but actually neither do I. So the doing things to people is effective in as much as you'll get things done. But you won't be happy, and you won't have a happy workforce. You won't have happy young people. If you're very supportive, but you're not very challenging, people love you. Because every time you approach them with a problem, they say, don't worry, I'll do it. Middle managers are very often in the for box, very supportive and not challenging enough. But the truth of the matter is, this is very damaging, being in the for box. None of my children ring me up anymore. No, I'll carry on. None of my children ring me up anymore to ask me how to tie their shoelaces. And that's because when they were 4 and 5, we sat with them and we taught them how to tie shoelaces. And that was a high challenge, high support environment. Because it's hard. Next time you tie your shoelaces, focus on what you're doing. It's really complicated. It's a bit like changing gear. The next time you change gear, if you do change gear, do it intentionally. It doesn't make any sense. You'll drive into a ditch, so perhaps don't do it. If you don't challenge and you don't support, don't come to work. Don't get involved, because you're doing nothing. You're not challenging, you're not supportive. What we try and do in Leeds is work with people, work with children, work with communities, work with parents. High support, we will create the conditions where you can succeed. High challenge, now go do it. And by doing that, what we're finding is that by obsessing on our 3 priorities, working with people and placing children at the heart of our growth strategy, we have improved performance. We have looked after numbers. Children in state care is going down quite significantly and saving us around £20 million over the last 7 years in terms of costs. Now, those who are accountants really like the £20 million. I like the nearly 200 children fewer. More than 200 children fewer in state care. Doesn't matter which way round it does it for you. But we're getting to a place which is better for our children. Fewer number of children not in education, employment and training. More school days attended by our children. More than 400,000 more school days attended. And so I suppose just to finish, I guess there's a question. Maybe, if you go back to the high support, high challenge, maybe there's a challenge here. What would happen if Tacoma or wherever, or the district, chose to intentionally be child-friendly, developed whatever your orange thumb would be, and put it all over the place. Engage your business community to support policymakers, politicians, welfare professionals, teachers, academics, and many, many others met together regularly with children and young people to hear what they have to say, to understand what their challenges are, what they're worried about. Let me tell you that we have a real problem in the UK with stress and anxiety in our young people. They're getting more anxious, and that's not okay. What is it that's creating their difficulties? Why are they anxious? How do we make our city a place where they can speak and let their voice have influence? I wonder what would happen if we work with rather than to. It's all about relationships. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
It's amazing. I want to go there now.
The kettle's on.
I want to be a kid, though. I want to go back and start again because it sounds like the place to be. As I observe your presentation and hear the information, the first thing I notice is you've changed, for all the geeks out here, you've changed the operating system of the community. The language, the way we treat one another, that I call the operating system.
Yep.
And when you change the operating system, the things that you add to provide the educational benefits for the students is accepted much faster.
Yeah.
A child with fear doesn't have access to their cortex. A child in stress doesn't have access to the cortex. You're doing amazing work. I really appreciate that. My question to you is this. What were the lessons that you've learned or the people in the organization learned about how to engage in the changing of the fundamental beliefs? I love it, the young person who is mayor for the day or mayor for the year, racism stinks or whatever there. That is so powerful coming from a child. So to my question, all of us are dealing with conflicts, people disagreeing. What has that done in this new environment?
Okay, well, a number of things. One is, it's really important, we haven't invented penicillin in Leeds. This is not magic, it's not alchemy. It's about relationships. It's for somebody who qualified as a social worker nearly 30 years ago. It's old-fashioned social work, it's about relationships. If you speak to teachers and talk about relationships in the classroom, it's not new. So there's nothing here that's magic. That's the first thing. I think the second thing to say is that this is a journey. It's a 7-year journey, so you can't just inject people with it. But what you can do is you can find followers. You can find people who say, I'll have a go at that. I'll agree with you. And when you find people who say, I don't agree with you, don't get excited about it. Just say, okay, that's fine. But this is our direction of travel. We're going this way. If you don't agree with us, it's not a problem particularly at the moment, but we're still going on. And you need to find people, maybe like me, who will go on and on and on about it until people sobbingly say, all right, Andy, all right, we'll I just think it's about saying this is the right thing to do. And I suppose going right back to values, let's not be scared of saying this is the right thing to do. Why would you not be child-friendly?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I did, the thumb. Yeah, we're getting there. Hiya.
Hi. You started to answer that a little bit, but what you've described happening in Leeds takes tremendous buy-in from community, political government, business leaders. how did that get started? How long did it take? It's still an ongoing process, I'm sure. And, how do you get that momentum and that buy-in?
Yeah. There was something very, very important happened in Leeds in 2010. In 2010, we have public government inspections in children's services every 4 years or so. And in 2010, they came to Leeds and they said that, you know what, you're not keeping your children safe. We got a rating which was very, very poor in that. And that was a moment in time, I guess. And the moment in time was, we've got to do something different because we're not getting it right. And what happened then was that there were the 4 people that you saw on the screen, and there weren't, some of the characters have changed, but the positions. The leader of the council, the most senior local elected member of the council, the portfolio holder for children and families, the chief executive of the council, and the director of children's services, as a group, were all on board with this. And that's such an important, and for those of you who are senior leaders, it's so important that there is a grouping there who will say, we are going to do this. We're going to pursue this. And then it just is that relentless repetition of some very simple things. One of the things that we do in the UK, it might happen here as well, is we take something which is really very simple and make it insanely complex, because we have rules or procedures or processes. This is a very simple thing, being child-friendly. It's really complicated to do, but the notion is really simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Find senior buy-in and go for it. Hiya.
Hi. I was raised in a very loud city and definitely not safe, definitely not child-safe city. I was raised in Moscow, Russia. I really want to go there, and if I ever have a child, definitely want to go to Leeds City. My question would be, what is the best motivation to connect teachers and children to get involved in government and get involved in being safe city? Because I always had conflicts with my teachers. I never understood what they want from me, what exactly is the assignment or something like that, or exactly what's happening in the government when we were 14 and everything was falling apart. We didn't know what's going on, and no one was willing to explain us.
Yeah. I think. I suppose that it's by being really honest with children and young people, by explaining to them how government works, how policy making works, but also say people don't always agree with each other. Let's be really honest about it. People don't always agree, and we have to work out how to not agree well, and how to not agree without that becoming something which is either violent or dangerous. But I also think that it's about politicians. We heard this morning, again from Bristol, get out there. Get out there and talk to communities. Get out there and be the people that you've been elected to be. And I'm certainly not here to tell politicians how that they should do their job, but part of it is it can be really complicated. How on earth does it all work? We need to understand, we need to explain, we need to help. And our young people, I suppose one of the things that really irritates me sometimes is that young people really get it if it's explained to them. They really understand it. They understand the complexities much more than adults do. And we just forget to tell them how it works. And then they get a bit frustrated because we're not talking to them. Does that go halfway to answering your question?
Thank you.
You come to Leeds. Hi.
Hi. Thank you. I'm curious as to how your work with children and your priority for children in the city has impacted your work with adults in the city.
Well, I suppose that it's all part of the same continuum, I guess. It's about saying to the citizens of the city, you're really important and your voice is really important. So in addition to having a child-friendly city, we have an age-friendly city. And so some of our public spaces and some of our shops now have places and have designated places where people who maybe have mobility difficulties can go and sit down. They can walk into a store or a cafe. They don't have to buy anything. There's just somewhere where they can go and sit down. So it's about saying we are going to bring the community and embrace the community in all its parts into the city of Leeds. And so instead of saying, and I don't suppose anybody says this very, very seriously, but aren't that group of people irritating, or don't they get in the way? We embrace them and say they're part of our great city. And if they're not part of our great city, we're not a great city. So it's embracing the whole. Hello.
Hello again.
I saw somebody just like you over there a minute ago.
Sometimes you get pushed back because there are so many different challenges that we face. Here, we're facing homelessness, various drug epidemics, and so on and so on. And you sometimes get pushed back about, why are we focusing on this right now when we have these critical issues instead? I'm just wondering what kind of similar issues you've faced in Leeds.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an either or. And I suppose the child-friendly ambition isn't a policy in as much as it's addressing something. It's a behaviour. It's something that says, this is how we do things around here. This is who we are as a city. We've got homelessness. We've got all sorts of challenges. Poverty in Leeds. And they think they need things which are really important to address those issues. What I'm wanting to talk about and was trying to talk about today was, it's not about do child-friendly city instead of address poverty. Do child-friendly city instead of addressing homelessness. Address these issues, but do it in a way which embraces and welcomes children. Because if children live in a city where there's homelessness, that's scary for them. And so how do we need to be child-friendly as a behaviour rather than as a policy. Hi.
Hi. I wanted to connect what you were saying to some of the speakers before, to the presentation that Mr. Rich made, Professor Rich and others have made, and our own presentation from New York. The first attempts at creating an anti-poverty program in the United States were called Mobilization for Youth, Youth in Action, Harlem Youth Unlimited. They were all targeted to youth. It came about because Robert Kennedy was trying to intercede in some of the gang wars that were going on around the country. And he convened some of the leaders of the major gangs, I think it was in Michigan. And out of that, he wanted to develop programs that would really benefit young people. Yeah. So there's a connection between what you're doing and some of and what others really inherited over the years. El Puente itself was organized by a group of young people who felt the racism and discrimination in the public schools, and they walked out and they protested. And their protest was embraced by 2 or 3 of the leaders who we mentioned before, Luis Gardner Costa in particular. And so it was their voice that led to the forming of El Puente. So I just wanted to point that out, because, and that links to the previous question, because unless we address poverty, we're not addressing the youth. But if we think about youth and how we make it better, then we can really think about community development and its holistic aspect.
Absolutely, thank you. And again, there's nothing new in what we're doing. Hi.
Hi. This is more of a comment and maybe even an ask. So I worked with young people, again, at El Puente. We empower them, we give them voice. It wasn't until I became a parent, I have twin boys turning 4, that realizing that New York City is not a family-friendly space, right? It's even to the point where you don't want to go out because you don't want to get embarrassed by your kids, because in New York City, like, it's not okay to be a kid. You need to like behave and be quiet. We can't go anywhere where they can just be kids. You know, the parks are very limited, and if we do have parks, they're near bridges and traffic, and it's just not, it's like just a very toxic environment. But when I think of like sayings like happy wife, happy life, like to me, it's if my children are happy, I'm happy, right? And it starts to kind of look at that as, you know, we're growing them up because they're going to be the future. And if they're growing up knowing how to like love and fun during the stressful moments, that we could as adults learn and be inspired by them. I would love to see something internationally done, maybe a week of youth voice, and maybe something, conferences around in the UK or even here in the States that will encourage schools to want to be a part of this culture, right? So to me, it's more of a movement.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to thank you. It was so refreshing.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And let's do it. Let's do it. There's nothing stopping us. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to link it back to this forum today, planners, when you're planning, think about children. And just a little thing. When you're doing your really clever mock-ups of what it's going to look like, either a picture or a model, would you put some children in there, please? And maybe some children playing, and if you're really brave, the odd climbing frame. Because that would be really good just to say to our children, we're going to build this new whatever, and by the way, you're part of our thinking. Great. Thanks very much.